Hello friends, this is Jim with Science Talk. I have a report involving habitat preservations. And here's the headline. Warmer world needs more protected habitat. Climate change is basically proving to be a main threat to biodiversity. So thus, protected habitat will be a higher priority than ever in order to give wildlife a chance. So we're getting to the point where the need to protect habitat for organisms is really acute. In fact, that's the greatest danger to especially vertebrates. More so than intruding humans, livestock, pesticides, herbicides, and so forth. It will also be the loss of habitat, but also the loss of habitat that not only due to human activity like cutting down forests and so forth, but also what's happening from global warming and the resulting climate change. The conversion of wilderness, forests, grassland, savanna, to urban growth, agriculture, pasture, has already caused losses of perhaps 1 species in 10 in the natural ecosystems that have been disturbed by humankind. This is all part of the currently mass extinction, the 6th mass extinction that is underway. And this is definitely being caused by human activity. And, of course, from human activity, how humans are altering the climate, the planet, ecosystems, and so forth, and pollution. So with our activities, you know, the consequences for birds, reptiles, mammals, other vertebrates, it could be catastrophic. And I've done stories where we talked about the loss of insects. Insect loss, it will be extremely devastating. Insects, food for many, like birds, feed on insects. Insects pollinate plants that grow up food. Insects are, some of them are detritivores, feed on dead things that help recycle nutrients. So it's all tied together, and this is all not looking very good at all. Losses could reach 20% or even 40%, according to a new study in the Proceedings of the Royal Society B. It's an academic journal. A second separate study spells out the challenge for governments, communities, and conservators. The present targets for biodiversity conservation are simply inadequate. They leave 83% of the land surface unprotected, 90% of the oceans not effectively conserved. So, in a study published in the journal Nature, Ecology, and Evolution, there have been calls to set at least half of the globe aside for the wild animals, plants, and fungi that dominated the planet. Now, this is again basically looking at land ecosystem. These groups that dominated the planet until humans started expanding their numbers and expanding their range. But this study suggests that even a half share for nature might not be enough to save many species from extinction. Researchers have been warning for 2 decades that climate change poses a real threat to the thousands of known species. What about the species we don't know about that have not been discovered, not been described for science? So a threat to the known species of wild creatures and millions of plants and animals, as if yet to be identified, described, even have an ecological monitoring of them. These researchers have argued that climate change will damage the forests that provide a natural home for countless organisms. Global warming already presents dangers for many species, and climate change due to global warming may have already claimed more victims, i.e. extinctions, or just drastic loss in numbers of species than anyone is even aware of. These same authors have stressed the fact that rich, biodiverse habitats, especially forests, are part of the natural machinery for limiting climate change. If you have a forest, there's more biomass there, there's more photosynthesis that can take place than, say, in a grassland. So, more photosynthesis, there's more drawing down of this atmospheric CO2. Also, if you want to put a price tag on it, if one were inclined to, forests are worth more to humankind as natural forests than as plantations or cattle ranches. Just think of all the medicine we get from nature. There are so many undiscovered species, plant species, for example, that could provide new medication, new drugs. We lose those organisms, we lose those potential for new medicines. A third study in the Journal of Animal Ecology highlights the direct dangers of warmer sea waters to the colonies of black-browed albatross in the Southern Ocean. Very careful, meticulous monitoring since 1979. Oh, this said 1797. Oops. 1979 has showed that the biggest variation in population growth depends simply on seawater temperatures. The cold Antarctic waters are rich in dissolved oxygen. Basic solubility of gas increases with a decrease in temperature. Colder water can hold more gas dissolved in solution. Warmer water, less gas. So if you start increasing the sea surface temperature, there's going to be less dissolved oxygen. That could affect how many organs that need the oxygen for respiration that's going to be there. May not be enough to feed albatross, as an example. So the cold Antarctic waters, they're rich in DO, dissolved oxygen. They support lots of phytoplankton. That's pretty much the primary producers in the open ocean. And the zooplankton, the tiny little creatures that feed on phytoplankton. And then the zooplankton feeds small fish, and fish feed bigger fish and birds and so on, and eventually all the way up to mammals. As I just said, as the water's warm, food becomes less available. There's another reason for that is, in addition to less dissolved oxygen, if you get a very warm surface layer, you then have this stratification, and it inhibits a vertical mixing. The mixing helps bring in nutrients for the phytoplankton. If they can't get the nutrients, they can't carry out primary productivity. You can have a whole system collapse. I did a series of videos about oceanic currents and what a warming planet will mean to that. I did one specifically on the AMOC, the Atlantic Meridional Overturn Circulation, commonly called the conveyor belt, where I describe what will happen in such a scenario with shutting down the conveyor belt, what happens when you get stratification of water. I've done other videos on water stratification. So please go through the library. I have all my videos posted here. Please go through them and look for those videos and watch. Or if you've already seen them, maybe you want to go look at them again. I don't take them down. I leave all my videos up. From the very first one I've posted to my most recent one, I leave them all up. So, Dr. Stephanie Genouvrier of the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution says that as our oceans are projected to warm, fewer juvenile albatrosses will manage to survive, and populations are expected to decline at a faster rate. The albatross population of the southern hemisphere are already vulnerable. Climate change will put them even at greater risk and hazards. Now, there have been many areas of the world's ocean been declared reserves. But these areas, first of all, it's hard to monitor them. And it's not like, oh, I have a reserve here, and there's this magical boundary that no pollution from over here will infiltrate that. No, we know that. You know, water's flowing, we've got currents, we've got mixing. So we could have a reserve there, but it will still be subjected to pollution. It will still be subjected to warming sea surface temperatures, to perhaps permanent stratification of the water column. It's still going to be at risk to all those things. So even though we may have reserves, it does not necessarily protect the organisms within them. So Martine Maron of the University of Queensland, Australia, who led the Royal Society study, says this: humanity asks a lot of the natural world. We needed to purify our water and air to maintain our soils and regulate our climate. Goes on. Yet even as we increase the extent of protected areas, they don't necessarily prevent the loss of natural systems. That's a key point. They're often located in areas that might not have been lost anyway, and the current target of protecting 17% of terrestrial systems will never be enough to protect species as well as provide the benefits humanity needs. Her co-author, James Watson of the Wildlife Conservation Society, also based at the University of Queensland, and this is a different James Watson than of the Watson-Crick team that described the DNA double helix structure. He basically says we need a big, bold plan. There is no doubt that when we add up the different environmental goals to halt biodiversity loss, stabilize runaway climate change, and to ensure other critical ecosystem services such as pollination and clean water are maintained, we will need far more than 50% of the Earth's natural systems to remain intact. Now, when you look at that and you take into consideration how much land will be unavailable to humans, just looking at humans beside, as sea levels rise, you're going to have people displaced. As areas become uninhabitable, too hot to live in, like parts of the Middle East, these people are displaced. That puts tremendous pressure because now you need land for people to live, but also land to grow food. So we're going to lose all these lands for people, but we still have to set aside more than 50% of land for biodiversity in order to keep things somewhat going. Something has got to give. This is going to be like the twig that snaps, and the consequences is not going to be good. The consequences are not going to be good. Basically, there's tremendous pressure on a finite land area, is what it comes down to. We have human pressure, we have the need of animals, and something's going to give. And if we lose the animals, you know what? People are not too far behind. That's just, it's even more so than, ecological cycling and aesthetic reason. It's the fact that the biodiversity helps keep humans going. We lose the biodiversity, humans are not far behind. So I wanted to share those findings with you, those assessments, if you will. And that we're getting to the point, if we haven't already gone past it, that what's going to hit the fan in a big way. It may have already hit the fan, and it's now being flung off. So, thank you for watching, and we'll talk soon. Hey folks, just a reminder to please subscribe and click the bell so you know when I drop a video. Please share my videos, please tell others of my channel and of the work that I do. I also hope that you will consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/Science Talk with Jim Massa, where from time to time I upload videos there exclusively for my patron subscribers. Details in the description box below. Thanks.